Let me show you the voting system that should be most possibly resistant for infringement. Let me start with the model of the voter package. The same exactly voter package would be received by the person who wants to vote from home and when this person is voting from the voting station. So, okay. This includes an instruction, of course, 2 envelopes, of which both have to be used, and several cards. Now, from these cards, you need to select those that are entitled ID and filler. You should put them on one of these 2 envelopes. The rest of the cards contain the names of the candidates. So you get the one of your choice, let's say it's this, you put it together with these previous cards. Rest of the cards are put on the second envelope. It doesn't matter which envelope is which, there are just 2. Now, an optional step, you can take this ID card and your candidate card and make a copy of them, or just write down these numbers that are beside. This is for you to be able to verify your vote, whether this has been received correctly. Now, the most important part is you take all these cards, you tear off the part with numbers and put them, only these with the numbers, into the envelope. The same thing you do with the second one, the numbers. Now, you can seal the envelopes and send them, preferably using 2 different postal services. In case when you vote for voting station should provide the voters with 2 different drop boxes. You should use 2 different drop boxes. This is just for redundancy and security. Okay, let's discuss now the whole system. Okay, so let's discuss the timeline. We start with announcement of the elections. At that time, there should be generated package ID numbers that should cover all the people who are privileged to vote, plus the spare packages. Now, since that time, people should be able to pick up their package ID numbers. They should identify themselves and get their package ID number. Those who are voting from the voting station will have to request then the package from the voting station. From home, they just need to verify if the number is correct. Then we have the deadline for registration, and next day we have the generation day. That is, this is a public event attended by volunteers who want to verify all the devices used for that generation. I'll cover that later. Now, result of this generation should be the generated database, the voter packages printed by the machines connected to the computer where the generation has been done, and then the generated database is written to a non-modifiable medium and then locked in a safe case. And this remains locked until the end. Now, as the voter packages are since that day sent to the voters, and then we have to receive the answers in these 2 envelopes, and then there's a deadline for receiving all the responses, and at that time the whole response database is published. The response database should be, well, such numbers, that is, for every ID you should have 2 envelopes with 2 sets of 4 numbers, and from the responses this response database is built and then published at that day, without even knowing what these numbers mean, of course. Then, next day, we open the database from the safe, the key database, and then we do the matching, and that's it. Of course, there should be some official software used for counting the votes, but as both the response database and the key database are open and published, everyone can do the matching, or everyone can verify if the matching officially done was done correctly.
Okay, so let me show you in short how this database should look like. So you have here these numbers that you have seen on the cards, and a single line is assigned to a single voter package. So you have all these numbers generated and assigned to particular items. The numbers should be unique in the class to which they belong, meaning that all these numbers of package ID obviously are unique, and also all these numbers here should be unique. But there's no restriction that these numbers could not repeat in any other package in any other position. The interpretation of the number is simply assigned to a particular package. In every package, all these numbers are different. After the responses come in, you have here the package ID. You should have 2 envelopes, each one containing 4 numbers. And then you have these numbers assigned to particular items. This is the person for which the vote is given. These are all the remaining cards.
Okay, some more things about this registration. So the ID numbers should be generated and then assigned to the voters who report and register for voting. People who have received them, they should be notified with their personal data, just to have this thing check that they have reported for voting. However, this number is not assigned to their personal data anyhow. Except one thing. There is one thing required for verification, that is they should submit some document with some ID number. This ID number should be encrypted the way that does not allow for decryption, so that they can be later verified at the voting station. These numbers are assigned and all the others are unassigned, and there is also some number for the spare packages, in case when some package was incorrectly printed or it was damaged or it was lost in the way or something. In case when a spare package has been used in replacement for some existing package, so the voter should then request the replacement by submitting the ID numbers that they have received. Then this is cancelled and the spare package is used for replacement. All these things should be marked, and ID numbers at that time, when the registration is ended, all these ID numbers should be published. Okay, let's discuss now the security itself. So you need to know that actually in kinds of elections, no one can be trusted. In case of any company who is promising to send some secure data somewhere, and this might be infringed somehow, but then the company is making it as hard as possible. Otherwise, it can go out of business quickly. Here, we cannot have anyone who can get out of business, and especially if they get power next, they can get away with this, right? So, why am I proposing the system basing on paper instead of software, machines, and sending the data over internet or whatever? Actually, this process cannot be secure anyhow, and at least not any trustful way that no one is trying to look into the data or modify the data that they shouldn't. That's why the generation die is using the computer of the following characteristics. So here's the computer that is used to generate the database at the generation die. It should be proven that it has only access to these here devices, and especially it has completely no connection to any network, any radio, also any connection on the power cable that can send any data. This should be proven. The volunteers should be allowed to verify if this computer is really not connected to anything else than the keyboard and monitor, the printing machines that should print the voter packages, the read-only medium from which there's loaded the operating system, the software used for this whole generation, and also the input data in the form of the ID numbers. And also there is a writable medium that should also use exclusively write once medium, such as CDR. Well, I know that this technology is barely used today, but because it, for a usual user, it just provides no advantage except that it's just a mass storage device. But the inability of rewriting the data is actually what we need here. So any kind of device that can ensure this should be used here for writing out the database. Then the database, after writing, is locked away in a safe with no possible access by anyone. The volunteers who are observing the elections should be able to verify all these things, that is, that these are the only devices connected to this computer, and also check the operating system and check the software that is being used for generation. All these things can be done before the generation starts. A trial generation also should be done in order to ensure that well, the database is generated correctly, everything is okay. Of course, the integrity verification should be done as well after generating the real database. Everything should be able to be displayed on the screen, and the screen should be also observed by the observers of the elections. The only thing that the observers are not allowed to see is the content of the database. Okay, now let's answer the question, why cannot this all be done through the software? So the only way to ensure that the software is not modified and is not doing something that is not expected is to use the paper, because paper cannot be changed without having this modification being seen. If you use the paper, you can also have just one unique copy of the data, and that's exactly what we need. And there is one copy in form of this voted package and one copy here in the database. This cannot be seen, this cannot be copied, and once opened, of course, this voting package should be packed in an envelope that does not allow to be closed again or reused. Just accessing the data should destroy the whole package. Now, that's why there should be also generated several additional numbers of the packages that should be available at the voting station in case when one of the packages has been destroyed or didn't arrive or something like this. Of course, the numbers that are generated for the IDs should be, first of all, published. All these numbers are published without, of course, without assignment to particular persons, but we also need the location of the package ID, that is where the person who has received it is living. This should be done by simply checking the person that has been registered that it has reported, received the number, and it's checked. Of course, it is nowhere recorded which person has been given which number. This should be a location that does not allow to identify anyone, so it should enclose at least 100 people, and say at most 10,000, something like that. This is required so that after this set of ID numbers, when they are published, everyone can check if there are living that many people in this area and whether these all people are privileged to vote. As there should be also printed extra packages that can be used in replacement of the other, this should be also notified publicly that if a package has been replaced by another, then the package that has been cancelled should be marked as cancelled, and which of the numbers has replaced this package. And of course, additional thing, when this database is being generated, after generation and before starting the printing machines, there should be calculated the checksum using a public algorithm. Just can add all these numbers with rolling back for the 32-bit numbers or something like that. Some simple way to calculate the checksum should be done on the whole database, including all packages, that is also spare packages. And this checksum should be published. So this checksum can be then verified after this key database has been opened, so that everyone can see that it wasn't changed in the meantime. Scanning all these responses should be at best automated. That is, all these numbers should be unpacked by the machine and all these numbers scanned, including the ID number in the envelope. Most important thing is that everything is unpacked, scanned and read while we don't know what these numbers mean. Now, can we do anything like this with the use of machines, computers, sending over the net? Unfortunately, no. There is no, well, maybe someone can work out some way to do it, but I don't think so, because, here we can allow this whole system to be verified. The computer can be verified, software, operating system, input data, if they are correct. Then we run the software and we hide the database that is generated. We are running this just once and we control the whole process when it is done. Allowing the software to be run on any machine that is just the company employed by those that are currently ruling, this is simply, there is a basic rule in security, which is actually based on the Murphy's Law. If something can be potentially infringed, you should state that the infringement has happened. So that's why there is very little possibility here to use the software, hardware machines. This is just used for this generation part. But then sending and receiving the answer, this should be authenticated as much as the voter can care. As you know, we had this optional step for recording these numbers. So now that the response database has been received, they can just verify if these two numbers are at least in one of these two, because, well, how the matching is being done. So you have the numbers of the candidate, then you find which of these two contains the ID. Now, if this one is of the ID, then we should also identify the filler cards, and the remaining one is the candidate that is being voted for. The others are the other candidates. Now, why sending both envelopes? Well, this is for two purposes. One is that it provides redundancy. If you lose this envelope, for example, then this information can be still recovered using the second one. But the other important thing is that by having both envelopes sent, you don't leave the loose tails. Both envelopes are being sent, so no number can remain. Of course, maybe not everyone can do this whole procedure correctly, but then if there is something wrong in these numbers, the vote is cancelled. Now, well, just for a final word, I think you should be able to implement this thing quite easily and provide this why the security required. Of course, there are still possibilities for infringement here, but they are so hard that I think you should just as well state that even if something is infringed here, then this should be insignificant and at least not influence the final result.